Hi, everybody, and welcome to Defending Your Data in 2022. And we're going to be talking about DSM's Managed Cloud Services and powered by Zadara. And we look forward to sharing this time with you today and hope that you will find this interesting and also a learning experience for you as well. So again, welcome. Real briefly, as far as the agenda is concerned, we're going to do introductions of DSM and Zadara in just the next slide. We're also going to talk about a few definitions. And then we've got a slide that we call What the Heck is Going On, that talks about the state of the union today, if you will, in regards to the IT industry and what kind of challenges that some of our clients are going through. Then we'll talk about DSM's Managed Cloud Services using both compute and Z compute and Z storage, discuss a few use cases, and then sum things up over the next half hour, 45 minutes. Again, thank you for joining, and we look forward to having you listen in today. My name is Derek Danskin. I'm a partner marketing manager at Zadara, and I will be presenting with Brian from DSM. Brian, it's off to you.
Thanks so much, Derek. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody. My name is Brian Bonashinsky. I'm a product manager with DSM. And over the next few minutes, I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of an overview about DSM. Derek, if you could jump to the next slide. About DSM. So I like to think of ourselves as technologists with the products and the solutions that are necessary to guide our customers on the journey to the cloud and through that data availability solution that we offer, and really allowing the customer to focus on their core business while we focus on the technology that provides it. Derek, next slide. So who does DSM serve? So we serve both small and medium-sized businesses, both corporate and state and local government. So we really like to focus on those customers that need our help, right? Everybody has a limited amount of time, resources, budget in their business, in their day, in the challenges that they face from a business perspective. And what DSM can bring to the table is that expertise to work through those things from a technology perspective with our customers. Derek, next slide. And so just to give you a little bit of history on DSM. So we were founded in 1986, way back when. We landed our first state client in 1987. And as we kind of looked at our client portfolio and the problems that we were solving for our customers, we kind of built our business based on those problems and what we saw as a need for those customers as our client base evolved. So we opened our first data center in 2000. We quickly determined that disaster recovery was an area that we really needed to focus on for our customers. So started that in 2002. We landed the state of Florida DR contract in 2010. And again, as we looked at that business and that portfolio, and as we solved those problems for customers, we continued to evolve our business and the infrastructure that we required to support those solutions, and opened a dedicated government data center in 2016. Moved on to offering virtual private cloud to our customers via a VMware Cloud Director solution. And most recently, we've focused on CGIS cloud readiness and being able to provide those CGIS solutions for state and local governments as well. Next slide, Derek. And so where are we today? So from a product perspective, you see 4 quadrants here. We have a high focus on data availability, and the unified data management solutions that we provide really are the core, the foundation of that solution. That includes disaster recovery, data protection, ransomware detection, insider threat protection, as you can see on the list there. And With those core solutions, we've wrapped managed cloud and managed services into those as well to bring that all back together. And of course, in this day and age, with the security landscape as it is, with those managed solutions, we also include some security solutions wrapped into those products, to again ensure that that client or customer data is secure, safe, and available at all times. Derek, that's a little bit about DSM.
Excellent, Brian. Thanks so much. So let's talk about DSM's managed cloud services powered by Zadara and where that is and how that fits in and potentially how it'll fit into your cloud journey. Basically, this is a map that shows all of the locations. We have the data centers that Brian had talked about down in Florida, but this also shows is that the edge cloud services that are available through DSM of being able to go around the world. So in the event that someone says, I want to back up to San Francisco, or I want to back up to New York, or in the event that I've got something that's happening in Japan or in Great Britain, there's opportunities to do that. And we refer to it as edge cloud services because we're out at where the data is being consumed and generated. So this gives you an idea in regards to this. And with Zadara, we're over 10 years old as a product. We have 300 plus clouds and over 300 petabytes. This is 280, but over 300 petabytes it's actually deployed. And this is working with other partners that are similar to DSM that DSM has contact with and can work with going forward. Zadara is trusted by a number of leading companies worldwide. You can see a number of the different logos that are on here, and we'll talk about a couple of them. One of them in the upper right-hand corner is Omnitrax, and this is one that we work with. That if you are going down the road and you're getting passed by semis or you're passing semis, sometimes you'll see that Omnitrax logo on there. And what that means is that they are tracking the data that's on that truck as to where it's at, what way stations it's passing, how many hours the drivers are tracking or are driving, because there's restrictions on that, so they don't drive 24 hours a day and be unsafe. But all of that data is right there on the edge and being able to pick up that information and go from there. So let's talk a little bit about DSM's managed cloud services. We refer to DSM and the powered by Zadara as your expert in managed cloud services. And with Zadara, what we've done is that we've set up, and our business model was created before the product was designed. So before we wrote any code whatsoever from a Zadara perspective, is that we sat back and said, what are our objectives and what are we trying to accomplish and what do we anticipate is going to be needed in the marketplace? So we wanted to focus on that. First of all, it needed to be fully featured. And that means that there'd be virtual CPUs and memory, solid state drives, hard drives, and then of course, at-risk encryption, snapshots, mirroring, high availability. These all had to be basically performance and security enterprise grade. And that was just an entry level to get into this market at all. So that's the checkbox that we made sure that we focused on. One of the other objectives that we wanted to focus on here is to making sure that it was fully elastic, that it was going to be a utility-based type environment so that you could be pay as you go, and that way means up or down and be able to scale according to the needs that go along those lines. And we'll talk more about that later in the presentation. Wanted it to be 100% OpEx, so it's all an operating expenditure to our end users. And also it could be in any location, meaning on premises, in a co-location site, or out in the cloud. And then the third thing that was an objective that we put together is we wanted to make sure that it was fully managed and that it had expert management. So we have basically around the clock support from a Zadara perspective, and it's 24/7 by 365. And that way we want to make sure that that makes it proactive and then makes it seamless from a migrations and upgrades perspective. And we've got technical resources that are available and watching what's going over there. The other part is that we want to partner with people such as DSM and with Brian, so that way when it comes time for you to make a call or you have a question, rather than going out and doing a search on the internet or being able to call in an 800 number and wait on hold, is that you could call Brian, for instance, and say, hey, what's going on in my environment? So it's more personalized support that understands what your environment looks like. Those were the objectives that we started out with. What I'd like to do here is talk a little bit about the definition of cloud and also the edge. My experience is that a lot of times, and for me too, is that that's changed over the years, is that what's the definition of cloud and what does that mean? And it can mean different things to different people. So for this presentation and for today, what I'd like to do is just lay a foundation and talk a little bit about what cloud is. And for today's presentation, we'll say that cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially storage and compute, without direct active management by the user. So cloud will be used, we'll use that as a definition for that. And when we talk about the edge, we're referring to edge as a distributed computing paradigm that includes the development of infrastructure and applications outside of the centralized data center. And this is the important part, as close as necessary to where the data is generated and consumed. So we're really going to focus on how do we get out there to be able to where the data is generated and consumed and work from that perspective. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges in the enterprise today. There's 5 popular use cases of what the heck is going on, and we'll give credit to my mentor and the person that had put this slide together that called it "What the heck is going on" to Doug Jury, who is just recently retired. But he would go in and say, let's talk a little bit about what's working in the marketplace and what are we hearing from our clients today, and what are some of the challenges that people are looking at in their cloud journey. One of them is repatriation. We've heard about different situations where some people have gone to a public cloud, such as AWS or Azure, and they feel like they're getting locked in. And they're getting inconsistent performance, and they need that consistent performance with them. It's because there might be noisy neighbors or whatever the case would be. And also is that I want to make sure that I've got the cost savings and predictable costs that go along those lines, as opposed to that going up and down on a regular basis. And then this type of a situation is that we wanted to make sure that we could move data between clouds and repatriate as appropriate. One of the other things that is coming up is the diversification in regards to that I'm hearing on a number of different webinars, and I'm hearing from different clients as we have conversations with them, is that they don't want to have the old proverbial, all of your eggs in one basket. So this gives them the capability to be able to make sure that they have, what we're going to bring today is a solution that makes sure that they have the capability to diversify, and also to make sure that they can have consistent bills that they expect to have on a regular basis. Another challenge that we see is people going from a CapEx to an OpEx model. They want at the edge. How do we go and model that out there and make that happen? The past history of people is that they're going to go and they'll buy for 3 to 5 years and then be able to go from there. How do I go to a utility-based pricing environment and move from a CapEx to OpEx? Edge and latency. We've all been on different calls on the phone or in front of a computer terminal or whatever the case would be, where somebody will pop off when you're talking with a customer service agent and they'll say, you know what, the computer's really slow today. Well, that might very well be that they're not getting the performance that they need, and or that there might be latency issues that are associated with that. And of course, that's frustrating, not only for the person that is the employee, and it's non-productive for them, but it's also very frustrating for us as an end user or consumer or your customer to be able to do in that situation. So how do we go out to the edge and be able to get the data where it's consumed and also being generated? And then local partnerships, such as DSM. It's not simply being a number. We understand your environment. It gives us a call up and we can say, hey, what's going on? And that way we make sure that in conjunction with DSM and Zadara, that we make sure you address the issues and make it as easy and as supportive as possible. And then technology refresh is another one where people are coming to a point where we're seeing that the price and the technology is changing on a regular basis. How do I go and make sure that I've got the best technology and getting the best service that I can and to keep up with that, as opposed to something that I've bought anywhere from 3 to 6, 8 years ago. I've seen that they're still working there, and there's a lot of performance challenges that happen along those lines. So those are the things that we'll be addressing today, and I hope you'll find these of interest.
Hey, Doug, really quickly, can you pop back there?
Sure.
Yeah, so the three of those that really stuck out to us, DSM, whenever we were kind of looking at new technologies and partnerships and looking at a partnership with Zadara was the ability for them to support that OpEx or CapEx to OpEx model, the edge latency issue for us and for our customers. And then, very much important to DSM is that local partnership, right? So being able to leverage the Zadara technology and the relationships that we build with our customers to provide our solutions. So those three kind of really stuck out to us when we were evaluating Zadara from a technology perspective to use it to power some of those solutions that we provide. So I just wanted to give the users that insight there from that perspective. Thanks, Doug.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. So the objectives that we're really focused on here is that we want to talk about any time zone, any storage type, any application, 100% consumption based, and any location, even yours. And we'll define that over the next few slides. So let's talk a little bit about Z-Compute. When it came to Z-Compute, what we really wanted to do is to make sure that we could bring an elastic compute solution to you to be able to access your business demands. In this type of an environment, this can be at any site, which we'll discuss here in the next slide or two. Also is that make sure that it's very easy to compute or to service your compute provisioning and bring that up, and then EC2 compatible. In the event that you're already working with a public cloud, such as AWS, and you want to migrate that over, this gives you the capability to do that. Not necessarily going to run into all of the details here, but I'm hoping that I'll just be able to get your interest and have you ask for additional questions, and we can talk about your specific environment in conjunction and partnership with DSM. When it comes time to actually create one of these deploy cloud services on a demand, is that it's basically just a matter of a few clicks and it's up and running. So it's not a matter in regards to if you have a CapEx environment that I've got to go get new resources, I've got to get the budget approved, I've got to go through procurement, I've got to wait until it ships and then be able to implement it. This just gives you as an end user the capability to click a few different clicks and be able to bring up and provision your resources and to work from there on a utility-based environment. And then the other part that goes along those lines is at any location. This could be on premises at your location, as is depicted here. It can be out at the DSM site, or it can be in a central co-location environment somewhere else. So that gives us the capability to be able to go out and to get that information and again, get out at the edge where it makes the most sense. And again, this is all on an OpEx model. So with any compute resources, of course, you need to have storage resources, and specifically in regards to where DSM started is for backup and disaster recovery and those kinds of things. So how do we bring an elastic model to the compute environment? And what differentiates us from the rest of the world? Traditionally, and my background is that if I wanted to do any block storage, I would go and I would set up potentially fiber channel. And NFS or CIFS might be used for file. And for object storage is that I need to be able to just have those be an environment where I'm just taking a picture, I'm taking documents that don't change, or videos, or whatever the case would be, and I'm storing those out. What we want to do is that with Z-Storage is to be able to create what we call a VPSA, or a virtual private storage array, and we can configure it and reconfigure it on the fly for any storage workload. And all the media types that we have is hard drive, hybrid, with cache and hard drives and or solid state drives, gives us the capability to develop the performance that you need. And through Z-Storage, file, block, and object can all be configured in one situation on the array, depending on how you want to use it. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to be able to do that, which is one of the focus areas that we wanted to work on. Again, similar to Z-Compute, is that we can just go right out and create new VPSAs for object storage, for storage arrays, whatever the case would be, and allocate those resources out to you on an OpEx model and make it very easy just by a few clicks, 2 or 3 different screens to configure what you're looking for and the size, and you're good to go and up and running in just a very short period of time. So let's dive down here into a little bit deeper architecture or deeper dive in regards to this. And this is going to be the technical slide for those of you that are technical. When we go and we create these types of situations, you know, these storage we have over here in regards to file, block, and object, as we've talked about, but we're going to have 3 different renditions here on this VPSA. One of them is going to be the database as a service. And of course, with this, what we're going to want to have is the best performance that we can have. So we've allocated in this environment 4 different solid state drives. And these are set up with a 400 engine, and an engine, for those of you that are technical, is sort of like a storage controller that we can define what storage controller we want to dedicate to these drives. And then we're going to go and allocate these drives. These are basically going to represent that aren't being used here as basically going to be an environment where these are backup drives or failover drives. In the event that we've got a Beam Performance NAS environment, we're going to use hard drives and cache. And in this VPSA, we're going to have just hard drives for object storage in this environment. Now, there's a couple of different things to take a look at here. Is that one of them is that we're actually dedicating drives out to you. And what that means is that you're not going into a pool. We had one client come to us and they said, you know what, based on some of the restrictions that we have, we need to be able to have that drive, if it fails, and all the drives will fail eventually, that if and when it fails, that you can return it to us, because our restrictions and our objectives are is to be able to turn it to dust because of the data that's on there. And they had gone to the public cloud environment and they'd asked and said, can you return those drives? If it's just our drive, we want you to return that to us so that we can turn it to dust. Well, no, we can't do that because we're in the pool, said the public clouds. And they came to us and said, what about you? Can you meet this need? In this type of an environment, these drives are dedicated to this environment here, as the database as a service as an example. In the event that there's problems with this drive and it goes down, automatically it'll fail over. So it doesn't mean an interruption that happens along those lines. But now we can take this drive here and return it back to the end user, and they can do with what they want to in regards to it. The other thing that's important in regards to this is to remember, this is utility-based. This is a service. So in the event, and I just heard of an example this morning where there was a bank overseas and they had sized everything up in regards to how they wanted to have their data to be able to access it. But they considerably undersized it by accident, and it was actually 20 times greater than what they had thought. Had they used another type of an environment, such as actually done a capital expenditure, it probably would have been a job changer for someone who made those decisions and got that sizing wrong. However, in this type of an environment, if you go and you say, you know what, I just need hard drive and cache for this type of a situation, and I'm going to dedicate that to be able to address this local environment. But you were wrong as far as the performance is concerned. You say, hey, can I go and can I upgrade these and get the faster drives and expand that? Of course you can. You don't own the drives. This is a service, and we are providing this to you as a service. So we can easily migrate these over here to a solid state drive and have better performance. And all you're doing is just paying a little bit of a difference in regards to going from one performance level to another performance level. So it gives you a lot of flexibility as an end user to decide and to put your different applications in the environment where they should be and where they need to be, and you're going to get the best performance. And that's where we're getting this tagline, excuse me, at the bottom that says you can't get it wrong. And that's one of the things that I want you to all remember, is that with this type of a solution, that what we're bringing with DSM cloud services powered by Zadara is you can't get it wrong. Lots of flexibility that goes along those lines.
Yeah, Doug, and just to add to that, you know, one of the things, again, as we looked at Zadara, in relationship to us using it to power our infrastructure and some of our cloud services, was that same model that we take advantage of that as well, right? So being able to scale up and scale down these systems that power some of our solutions with the Zadara storage is critical for us. And we can also obviously extend that out to our customer base in different ways, as you'll see in the coming slides here. So very
Excellent.
cool stuff.
Excellent. And as we talked about before, is that this Z storage can be in any location. And that means that it can be on your end user site. It can be at DSM's data center. It can be at another remote data center if needed. And also in the event that if you wanted to have, and you're working with, for instance, AWS, and you wanted to just migrate the storage over and keep your compute there for a period of time, or Google or Azure, is that we've got very close connections along those lines that are all available to you to be able to meet that and still have the value that goes along with the Z storage. So let's talk about a few different use cases here. One of them here is that we can take a look at co-location customers. And in this environment is that if you're in an environment where you're just contracting with slots and watts and data space at this point in time, is that this gives you the capability that I look at it and say, you know what, something comes up that I've got a new project that would come up, and it would say, you know, I'm being asked to allocate resources. This is going to be a proof of concept. It may only be alive for 6 to 9 months, and then we'll decide whether we want to move forward with it or whether we want to just delete it. This gives you the capability and the flexibility that you can go and use both Z storage and Z compute to be able to use that as an addendum onto your current location or your current environment. Or of course, you can easily migrate from the old technology over into new technology, which we'll talk about here in a couple of moments. Also is that you've got a situation where you could have Z compute and Z storage at your location, and through DR and backup, in this case, we're backing up cameras and applications and those kinds of things out at the customer environment. And then we want to just use DR and backup over to DSM so that we make sure that we get this taken over and moved into a second site. And if you are close enough and you don't have challenges as far as performance is concerned, also have the capability to be able to use VPN from different departments and files, maybe remote offices and those kinds of things, to be able to go out and get that back into the DSM data center. Lots of different flexibility and capabilities that go along these lines. And then if in the event that, let's say that you've got a situation that you want to go and you've got XYZ terabytes, and that XYZ terabytes is in your, I'm just using this hypothetical, and this is basically just to show an example of price stability, is that I've got XYZ terabytes that I'm going to use. I'm going to now migrate those over onto DSM in their environment and put it up into the DSM cloud. Initially, I've got that all connected up and I don't have any terabytes out there. I've just got it allocated on site in my environment. This means that I'm paying $5,000 a month, just using that as an example. I'm still using the same one in months 4 through 6, and now I'm migrating, I've migrated half of it over by applications to DSM, and I'm sharing half of the load is at DSM and half of the load is still on my old technology. It's still $5,000 a month. And then month 6 going forward, you see here in this example, is that I've actually migrated all that data over there, and now I can continue to work from it and move from there. Again, the point of this being is that the consistent pricing of how much you're consuming and how much the price would be. This is a more detailed version. That was a conceptual view. This is going to be a more tactical view. Again, is that we see here that step 1 is that let's say that I'm doing a technology refresh. Let's say that in the event that this is, I used to work for HP in a previous life. let's say that this is an old aging 3-par system, that the maintenance costs are just getting too high. They're saying, I need to upgrade. I don't want to do a capital expenditure. That's not the right method for my business right now. So I'm going to take and I want to migrate this 3-par over into a cloud type environment. And I'm going to take and we'll put Z storage on the VPSA here on site. I'm going to start to migrate these over using mirrored tools and rsync and robocopy. And I'm going to do this one application at a time and make sure that each of my department heads are comfortable with what's happened as we've gone through these processes at a technical basis, but I'm taking care of my end users coming from a data center perspective. And then once I've got them moved over here to Z storage, now I can mirror this over to DSM and be able to work this over and have this happen on a basis so that now, again, one application at a time to make sure that that migration goes smoothly and everybody's comfortable. And once that happens, now I can break that mirror and then ship this other Z storage back. And then now I'm going to be in a complete remote environment and working in this example over on the DSM environment. So this gives us a step-by-step basis in regards to how and where we can go through to actually migrate that data without interruption to your data center.
Derek, as from DSM's, for DSM, providing these solutions as a managed solution, that is 100% one of those things that we can guide our customers through and handle either partially or fully from a project perspective. And again, like that's just one of those benefits of working with a local partner and being able to walk through those things and get that expertise to work through those things if you don't have that on staff.
Excellent. And then let's talk about data protection, Brian. It's all yours.
Sure. Thanks, Derek. So one of the other interesting use cases for the Zadara Z storage solution that DSM really picked up on early on was for our Veeam VCC or Veeam Cloud Connect solution that we offer. So this concept of the 3-2-1-1-0 data protection rule applies to any backup solution, right? And on the next slide, you'll see that it's a little bit more specific to Veeam because that's our preferred partner from a backup vendor perspective. But the rule says simply that you should have 3 different copies of your data. You should have 2 of those copies on different media. One of those should be offsite, and then the most recent evolution of the 3-2-2-1 rule is that you should have another copy of that data that's immutable or air gapped. And then finally, with Veeam's VBR solution, it gives you the ability to actually do backup recovery testing prior to an actual failover event or recovery event. So next slide. Derek?
Yep.
Oh, thank you, sir. So this is a little bit more detailed explanation of that Veeam architecture and how Zadara actually plays a role in that. So if you look at that again from the 3-2-1-1-0 rule perspective, you've got your primary storage. It may be on your premise, and again, you may or may not be using Veeam, but you could still use Zadara storage to backend that your backup storage solution. But in our case, we're using Veeam. So or you could be using Veeam and you're backing up your data to that Zadara storage array on site. And then DSM being a Veeam Cloud Connect partner, you can actually ship that data off site so that it's not sitting on your premise alone, and it's obviously out in the cloud somewhere. And again, that solution for us is backed by Zadara storage. And the flexibility that gives us is scaling up and down those storage requirements and those needs for us to provide that service. And then the last thing that Zadara actually provides for us with that Veeam solution is the last one in the 3-2-1-1 rule, i.e. Having immutable backups. And what that means is that with the Zadara storage platform and the Veeam backup solution, we can actually provide an immutable backup, which means that your data cannot be changed once it's written. So think of that as basically a worm copy, write once, read many, and that data set is offsite and not directly in management site of your local backups on-prem. And so with that technology, we can provide all those things in the Veeam backup solution powered by Zadara. So really neat stuff there as well. Thank you, Derek.
Excellent. Very cool. Well, and I think that the part here is that we really want to make sure that we help you to protect your data and that we don't run into a situation where we're in a type of environment where we've got any type of ransomware demands or something like that somebody's holding us captive. So we want to make sure that we're protecting you and as an end user and making sure that your environment continues to run smoothly. So let's talk a little bit about your day-to-day experience with DSM's managed cloud services. Just a couple of different data points along those lines as we move forward. And thanks so much for hanging in there with us today. One of them is that the SLA is actually 5 nines. Our reality is 5.5 nines. And in the event that there's any interruption or anything that happens along those lines, it's 100% credit-based. And when we talk about that, is that when we're talking about utility-based and paying by an OpEx model, the example that I use is, for instance, I live in Southern California and I've got a water supply. In the event that it's 105, I can turn that up. In the event that it's raining and a little chillier, at least by Southern California standards, I can actually turn my water off that's coming in to take care of the landscaping on my house. So I make sure that that way we're only paying for what we need and when we need it. The other thing we want to talk about, and we talked about this before, is that traditionally when we would go to the chief financial environment and we had budget, we'd get budget every 5 years and we'd say we need this much storage. I might only be using 250 terabytes now, but I'm anticipating that worst case scenario, I might grow to 500 terabytes and based on that. So I buy 500 terabytes, 3 years later, 5 years later, I get an additional budget and find out that I'm only using 300 of my 500 terabytes. But now I need to plan for the next 5 years. So now I've got to overbuy in case I grow into that. In this type of an environment, by using utility-based environment, I'm not wasting my spend. I'm only using this based on when I need it and when it's going to come up along those lines. And I can go and I can scale up or I can scale down without any penalties based on the data usage and the need that is my business asks for. The technology is changing on a continuous basis. Is that we've got a situation where the price or the performance continues to go up and the price continues to go down. If you take a look at solid state drives as an example, over the last number of few years and those kinds of things, you've seen those change. A lot of times what happens is that I have to go and upgrade to the next technology and I may not be ready for that yet. And my end users might not be ready for that. And my budget might not be ready for this. This gives us the capability that what's going to happen is that you're paying for a service and we'll upgrade and change that service in conjunction and in partnership with you so that you will have control over that as to when we change that service over and to make sure that that works for you. And it's going to meet your users' needs and it's going to meet your company's needs. In addition, we want to talk about that we're going to have, which we mentioned before, is 24/7 by 365 management. So proactive support, taking a look at the data, making sure that, or the trends, making sure that you don't outgrow it. We can continue to build it out and work with you in partnership between Zadara and DSM and making sure that we're bringing the right level of support to you and there's no surprises. So let's take a look and recap here in regards to what we've talked about today. In the areas of migrating data between clouds and data centers and co-locations, I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket. I don't want to have all of the dependency just on one vendor. We've talked about being able to do that. How do we model compute and storage as a service and moving from a CapEx to an OpEx model? We've discussed that this is 100% utility based, it's 100% consumption based, and you can grow or decrease depending on what your needs are of your business. Leading cloud services close to the source of the data out at the edge. How do we make sure that we're out at the edge and that we're being able to get that data where it's being consumed and generated and where it needs to be used? And then also, once we've done that, is that how make sure that we've got our DRM backup repositories all in place. And as Brian had talked about previously on the 32110 slide. And then keeping the IT resources current at reduced costs without necessarily having any surprises, then that's another one of the objectives. And I think that we've discussed that as well. Brian, it's all yours.
Thanks, Derek. So yeah, next steps. So if you guys, were interested in anything that you heard here today, hopefully you were. Hopefully it was informative as Derek laid out in the beginning of the presentation. If you want to reach out to DSM in the next 10 days, we can provide a free ransomware health check and talk about any of the Zadara solutions that you saw here today. And you can see what that ransomware health check would include from us. If you are interested in either that or the Zadara solutions that you saw today presented, just reach out to us at hello@dsm.net or give us a call at 863-802-8888. Somebody will answer the phone and direct you where you need to be. I appreciate everybody's time today. Thanks for joining us. Derek?
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Very much appreciate your time. We know that time is valuable today. I hope that you've taken a lot of things away from this presentation, but the bottom line is if you only remember 3 things in regards to this presentation today, I hope that you remember that you can start where you want, pay as you go, and you can't get it wrong. We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you so much for joining us on the call today. Have a great day.